Hello, welcome to another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tompkins, and I'm a money mindset coach and psychologist, and I am obsessed with helping women reprogram their relationship with money so that they can make seven figures in their business. Now, I was recently asked why I was so passionate about helping women make $1 million in their business. I'm like, that's a really good question. And I wanted to share the answer with you because I haven't made seven figures in my business yet. The thing is, though, I know that I will. I know that that day is coming. When? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I know that it's going to come. And the reason I know that is because I made a decision, the decision to back myself, the decision to do something different in my life, the decision to say no to the life that I had before and say yes to myself and the possibilities. And because of that, I am so fucking determined and committed to my future self and to my current self and to my past self for getting me here that I know everything else that I want is going to happen. It's going to fall into place. I needed to believe in it and I needed to decide that I wanted it. And I did. And that's how I know it's going to happen. And that's what I want to talk to you about in today's episode, because your decision in your business is going to be the thing that ultimately determines whether or not your business is going to be successful, whether you're going to generate the income that you want, whether you are going to have the type of business that you're hoping for, whether it's going to be the business that allows you to have time freedom, or whether it's going to be the business where you're constantly hustling 24/7 because you don't know how to step back and delegate, or whatever it is that might be coming up for you in your business. Did you know that we make thousands of decisions every single day? Every single day, like we are making thousands of decisions. You made the decision to listen to this podcast episode. You're making the decision now to keep listening to it. You are making so many decisions every moment of every day. What are you going to have to eat? What are you going to eat? When are you going to eat it? How much are you going to eat? Are you going to eat it at the table or the couch? What are you going to watch on TV? What music are you going to listen to? All of these little tiny decisions are things that we are making every single day. And they happen without us knowing. They happen subconsciously. We don't think too much about, oh, okay, well, now I'm making a decision. Do I really want to do this, or am I just doing it on autopilot? We do. We love to just do. Our brains love to just do. We don't really think too deeply about what we're doing. And that can work really well in some respects. Like, we got to eat. Okay, great. Let's eat. We've got leftovers in the fridge. Simple, easy. The problem is, though, when we make all of those, what I kind of term micro decisions that are happening with our subconscious awareness, without us even thinking about them, that are actually influencing our choices later or the consequences later down the track. For example, you might have food in the fridge and it might be unhealthy, and you make a choice to eat that. I know I'm certainly guilty of that. And then for dinner, you make another choice to eat more unhealthy food. And then that pattern repeats the next day and the next day. And all of a sudden, the cumulative effect of making all of those micro decisions to eat all of that unhealthy food has an effect of weight gain. Or vice versa. You start to make choices around your eating habits and you start to eat healthier. And you might notice that you're feeling fitter, that you have weight loss. And I hate talking about weight. However, I guess it's something that people can often relate to. And it's a tangible example that makes sense. This happens with every single thing that we decide, whether it's the food that we eat, whether it's the TV that we watch. For example, I made a very conscious decision, I want to say during COVID, but maybe even before that I don't like watching too much news. I am so okay just getting the rundown on, Facebook, where your feed pops up with whatever news articles throughout the day. I am so good with that. I don't want to know all of the shit that's going on in the world because I'll hear about it anyway. Like my friends will tell me, it'll pop up on my Facebook feed if it's something really significant. I will hear about it. Like I'm not oblivious, but I don't consciously sit down and watch the 6 o'clock news, the 7 o'clock news, the 8 o'clock news, because that just drains me. I worked as a psychologist at the time, and working as a psychologist and then going home and watching the news, I'm like, whoa, this is just too much. So I made a very conscious decision to stop doing that so that my own health and well-being was maintained. Now, there are going to be people out there that will criticize those decisions. I can never say that word. There are people out there that will criticize that. However, it is a decision that worked for me, and I was very conscious and intentional about it. But when we're not conscious and intentional about the decisions that we're making in our life, in our business, then the consequences of that can like kind of reinforce these patterns that we've had throughout our life. They will just continue to play out those old subconscious patterns, and we'll have those same outcomes, and it will then reinforce how we think about ourselves, and we'll just continue on this merry little path. And I actually saw this the other day where I met someone, and we were having this conversation about, I don't even know how we got into this conversation, to be honest. I just remember them saying something along the lines of, my goodness, I am so lucky to have met my partner. My partner is a saint because they tolerate me, and I'm not an easy person to tolerate because, I was traumatized as a child, and because of that, I now have these behaviors which can make me really irritable towards my partner sometimes, and he tolerates that, and he's a saint. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, that's a really interesting story that you are holding on to about yourself, and you're making a decision to hold on to that story. And that story would be serving you in some way. And all of this was going on in my head. Don't worry, I did not bring this conversation up with this, this stranger that I'd met. But it was interesting to kind of reflect on that. And I wonder what stories you're holding on to that you're deciding to hold on to. And I know myself, I had been caught in this. And I went through this like massive spiritual journey over the last 12 months, which I'm not going to get into right now. One of the things, though, that multiple people said to me on my spiritual journey was, Ellie, it's like you've got one foot stuck in the past and one foot in the future. And you need to let go of the past. And when I explored this more with my spiritual mentor, I was like, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't understand what that even means. Like, people keep saying this to me, but I don't get it. And I couldn't understand what I had to do. Like, I understood the concept. I understood what it meant to have one foot in the past, one foot in the future. Like, I theoretically got that. But in terms of taking action and letting go of the past, I'm like, but I thought I had. Like, I don't know what I need to do. And it wasn't until we identified that there was some trauma that I was holding on to, that I was still hooking into. And I hadn't let go of that. I was holding on to things from my past because they were familiar. They felt comfortable. I was used to them. And I was making that decision to hold on to them, not consciously. And I was like, oh, I need to let go of that. Gotcha. Okay. And it's okay for me to do that. And letting go of that is going to mean I'm going to step into a version of myself that I've never met before, because the version of myself who's let go of that trauma is somebody that I don't quite know. And that felt really scary. So making decisions sometimes can feel really scary. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's all great, Ellie. I know we make lots of decisions in our business. I swear that word gets me every single time. You don't know how consciously I have to say that word. I don't know why. Maybe I say it too consciously, but every single time, decision. The thing that is between you and your $1 million business is the decision that you want it. You get to make a choice. And you notice how I say you get to make a choice? Like, how cool is that? You get to make that decision because nobody is forcing you. Nobody is standing around beside you going, you have to do this. You have to create a 7-figure business. You have to do this or else. And if they are saying that, well, you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people because no one is forcing you to do anything that you don't want to do in your life. You have to make that decision for yourself. And it can be really hard to make those kinds of decisions about a life that you might not yet think is possible for yourself. I don't think 7 figures is possible for me. I didn't think it was possible for the child self version of me who did have a difficult childhood and grew up with dysfunctional parents. That person would never have believed that 7 figures was possible for her. No way. But I made a choice. Do I want to hook into that narrative and live that life of that version of events that version of me believed to be true? Or did I want to consciously make a decision that is actually going to align with who I truly am and the goals that I want in my life and the type of life that I want to lead? And when I realized that I had the power to make that decision, that I could do things differently, it was a game changer. Didn't mean that I fully believed in myself. It didn't mean that I knew how it would happen. It didn't mean that it was going to happen tomorrow. But it meant I took that power back to make a decision that was aligned with what I wanted. And once I made that decision, everything else started falling into place because when you decide, you start making other micro decisions day to day that will have a consequence that aligns with the decision that you have already made. Because we like to pull evidence towards what we are believing about ourselves. So when you make that initial decision of whatever it is that you want in your business, it might not be 7 figures. It might be, I don't know what your goal in your business is. And for me, it's not about the money. It's not about the 7 figures. It's about the money in the sense that I want to prove that I can back myself and that I can have a goal and I can achieve it. Because I tell you what, other people don't believe that I can do it. I know that for a fact. Other people, my friends, think I'm crazy. It's not about them. And I have had to make decisions where I have to say, you know what? I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if I have to get on Instagram and post on Instagram and be visible because I back myself. And I tell you what, when I started Instagram, I did not back myself. But the more you show up for yourself, the more you decide that you are going to take that action because you've made that decision, the easier it gets. So just let that sink in because it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's fucking uncomfortable and it's hard work because there's so many rules, there's so many beliefs, there's so many, maybe not so many, but like your inner critic that you then have to navigate. You have to overcome so many hurdles in order to make that decision. And this is why I love the Millionaire Mindset Academy, because the women in there have made the decision that they want to change their relationship with money. Even though they're scared, even though they don't back themselves in their business, even though their relationship with money isn't where they want it to be. They've made a decision that they're ready to take action. And that in and of itself is really, really powerful. And then we just need to keep making more conscious decisions every single day. And what I love to have really helped me with my decision making, and it's something that I talk about in the Millionaire Mindset Academy and just in general, like even on this podcast, if you've been listening, you will have heard me speak about this before. I don't make my decisions from where I'm at today. I make my decisions from my future self, my future in a millionaire self, the one who has already achieved 7-figure success. Because when I step into her and who she is and how she's behaving and how she's thinking and how she's feeling, I'm like, wow, okay, you are not caring what other people think. You have the successful business and you have the money. You have all of the things that you wanted. So now that you're there, what would you do in this situation where you have to make this really difficult decision today? What would you be thinking, feeling, doing? And I step into her and her energy and I let her guide me. And when I do that, I am making decisions from a place of who I already am. I just haven't gotten there yet, which is really, really cool because your brain doesn't actually know something that hasn't happened versus something that's imagined in your mind. When we imagine something, our brain thinks it has happened. It can connect in with the emotions. It can connect in with the feelings. It can connect in with the thoughts. So it's actually really, really powerful. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And it is how I operate my business. And it is how I know I am going to achieve my goals. I don't need anything else. I don't need to have the money in the bank to know that that's going to happen because it already has. All of my decisions now are just catching up to that point because that point is just going to take time and I can't rush that. Business just doesn't work that way. So what I really want you to take away from this episode is all of those micro decisions that you make day to day and bring some more conscious awareness to those decisions. Because when we're able to see how all of those decisions then influence the outcomes, whether it's the daily outcomes or whether it's kind of the accumulated outcomes, like it all adds up. And what we want is for all of these little micro decisions that you're making day to day in your business, whether you increase your prices, whether you say no to that client who's a poor fit, whether you delegate tasks to other people in your business and take that holiday, whatever it is that you're doing in your business, all of those micro decisions will add up. And this is something that I also had to remember for myself recently, where I was working so hard in my business and I was forgetting to have fun. I was forgetting to do things for pleasure. And I was like, oh, this doesn't align with the values that I have. This doesn't align with the business that I'm creating for myself. And it made me go back and consciously decide to make a decision to have fun. And so now I've joined a gym. For me, that I guess is fun, but also it co-aligns with another value of wanting to just make sure that I'm fit and healthy. Because as you age, one of my things is I don't want to reach 60 years old and be at a higher risk of falls or whatever it may be down the line. And I know that if I want to reach that goal, then I need to actually start implementing now. So I made that conscious decision to take action and change the way that I'm living now. And that's what I really want you to take away from this episode is all of those little micro decisions that you do day to day. How are they bringing you towards that goal that you have in your business? And how can you step into that inner millionaire self who has already achieved that goal that you see for yourself or that you deeply desire? Because when you can step into her and have her help you make the decisions today, it becomes a lot easier to feel less fear about your goals because you've already achieved them and you're just playing catch up now. You're just putting into action all of the little steps that you need to be putting into place. And I really love that. So I, again, really hope that this has helped you to bring more conscious awareness into the stuff that you are doing day to day, and also empowering you to make that choice. Make that choice to dream big. Make that choice for 7 figures in your business. Make that choice to have a business where freedom is the overarching goal. And then figure out what that means and make those decisions so that you will actually get there. Because if you don't bring that conscious awareness in, you won't actually get to where you want to go. And I see this all the time. And at the end of the day, the only person who can make those decisions for you is you. One of my favorite things that I learned in the early days of studying or newly registered as a psychologist was going to one of my supervisors and being like, oh my goodness, like I see so much potential in this client and I can see if they just did X, Y, and Z that they would be doing so much better in their life, but they keep replaying the same pattern. And I don't know how to help them. I don't know how to get them to stop doing that. And I remember my supervisor said to me, Ellie, you cannot work harder than your client. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, I have to work hard. I need to help them with their mental health. And my supervisor was like, you can guide them and you can walk beside them and you can offer your skills and knowledge and reflect their patterns back to them. But at the end of the day, they need to make a choice. They need to be the ones to decide whether or not they're going to do the work. They need to be the ones that will decide whether or not they're going to take action. And that has been something that has always stuck with me because I can be here on this podcast sharing this with you. I can be in the Millionaire Mindset Academy helping my clients navigate their own relationship with money, but I cannot do the work for you. Only you can do that. Only you can decide whether or not you want it enough. And only you can decide whether you want it enough to take action, to change the narrative of how your life has been up until now. Because I'm living and walking proof that you can change the narrative of your life. The me that is here today is not the me from 10 years ago. I am completely unrecognizable, which is really cool. And you can have that exact same thing. It comes down to choices. So, what are you going to choose? What kind of life are you going to lead? And what kind of stories do you need to let go of? Do you need to decide to let go of in order to reach the goals that you have for yourself? Alrighty, on that note, with some of those reflective prompts for you, I will see you all again next week. And before I go, though, if you do want to dive further and understand your relationship with money and learn how to shift your money fears so that you can step into growing your 7-figure business, then you might love the Secret Podcast because I dive into the psychology behind your subconscious and really dive deep into some of, I guess, some practical ways that you can start shifting that fear. So if you do want to take more action and you do actually want to make that decision and change things, but you don't know where to start, that could be a really good resource for you. Alrighty, on that note, take care and I'll chat with you all next week.